Prevents Revolt, otherwise known as Spectacle Speech, by George Washington on March 15, 1783. Washington was born on February 22, 1732, in Westmoreland County, Virginia. He served as general and commander-in-chief of the colonial armies during the American Revolution from 1775 to 1783. Throughout the Revolution, he proved himself as an excellent leader due to his victories of a couple of decisive battles. After the war, he became the very first president of the United States and served his country from April 30th, 1789 to March 4th, 1797. He was known for conducting the convention that drafted the current United States Constitution and was nicknamed the father of this country. He died on December 14th, 1799. After the American Revolution, news broke out that the Congress was broke and therefore couldn't pay for the Army's salary and life's pension. This made Washington's men angry, and they therefore wanted to revolt against the Congress. News of this was brought to Washington in a letter stating that there would be an unauthorized meeting in order for this revolt to be discussed. Washington said no to the meeting and suggested it be on March 15th instead. At that meeting, Washington unexpectedly showed up and made his speech that ultimately prevented the revolt of his officers. Subject: Washington discusses the issues with his officers and their desire to revolt against the Congress. Occasion: this was held at a meeting in Newburgh, New York, on March 15, 1783. Audience: his audience was, of course, his men, the people who fought with him throughout the American Revolution. Purpose: the purpose of the speech was to put a stop to his officers revolting against the Congress. Speaker: General George Washington. Tone: the tone of this was disapproving, complimentary, and compassionate. He was very disapproving towards his men, but also very complimentary. But throughout the whole entire speech, he was extremely compassionate, especially when he talked about his country and his men. Diction: Washington uses words that exemplifies patriotism, like army, my country, military, and phrases like I pledge myself and faithful and meritorious services. This was in order for his men to relate to what he was saying, since they were all in the military and patriotism was very important to them. Imagery and details: Washington uses imagery in order for his men to see what it would be like if they were not to obey Washington and to stop the revolt against Congress. He's also very detailed when describing what would happen. Ethos: Washington establishes his credentials in the beginning of his speech by talking about his experience and dedication in leading the army through the Revolution. Logos: he addresses his audience with logos by reading them a letter from a writer who says that they should give up the war and flee to open territories. He points out this logic as being wrong because if they were to flee, then they would have not accomplished anything. Pathos: Washington's pathos in this was very strong. He appeals to the emotion of his officers, not in his actual speech, but after when he takes out his spectacles to read a letter from Congress. When he takes out his spectacles, he says, "Gentlemen, you will permit me to put on my spectacles, for I have not only grown gray, but almost blind in the service of my country." This is pathos because it draws the emotion out of his officers because they can see how hardworking and how much time and dedication he put in to serving his country. Since he is so old now. Repetition: Washington uses a lot of repetition, especially in his first two paragraphs. He repeats "as I" in the first one, saying, "But as I was among the first who embarked in the cause of our common country, as I have never left your side one moment, but when called from you on public duty, as I have been the constant companion and witness of your distresses, and not among the last to fail to acknowledge all your merits." He uses repetition so he can get his point across. Washington uses a lot of rhetorical questions throughout his speech in order for his readers to understand what he's saying. He also uses personification in order to grab the reader's attention. He also uses alliteration. He says, "If peace takes place, neither sheathe your swords." Washington makes a lot of claims throughout his speech. One claim he said was, "By thus determining and thus acting, you'll pursue the plain and direct road to the attainment of your wishes."